Once upon a time, in feudal Japan, there was a young samurai named Takeshi who was obsessed with controlling every detail of his life. Every morning, he followed the exact same routine. Wake at dawn, practice sword forms precisely 1000 times, eat the same meal, and plan his day down to the very minute. He believed that by controlling these small things, he could control his destiny and become the greatest warrior in Japan. But one day, during an important battle, everything went wrong. His carefully planned strategy failed when the enemy did something unexpected. His perfectly trained body betrayed him when he slipped on muddy ground. His controlled emotions exploded into rage when nothing went according to his design. Standing in defeat and humiliation, Takeshi realized that his attempt to control every aspect of his life had actually made him more vulnerable to the unpredictable forces of reality. The young samurai believed that by rigidly controlling his routine and planning every detail, he could shape the outcome of battles and his future success. But in truth, his obsession with control made him fragile. He became overly dependent on specific conditions, and when life didn't match his plan, he collapsed. He wasn't prepared for chaos, and chaos always comes. This story reveals a powerful truth. The more we try to control everything, the less prepared we become for the unpredictable and uncontrollable nature of life itself. No matter how well we think we've prepared, fate can always surprise us. And here lies the paradox. The harder we try to control the uncontrollable, the more it ends up controlling us. Our happiness, our peace of mind, they become dependent on external things we cannot command. Isn't that ironic? The ancient samurai understood this. Inspired by the wisdom of Lao Tzu, they studied the nature of water. Water overcomes the hardest stone not by force, but by persistence and adaptability. It doesn't try to control the rock, it flows around it, finding the path of least resistance while keeping its essence unchanged. The samurai applied this principle to combat and life. They realized that trying to control their opponent's moves only made them rigid and predictable. Instead, they focused on what was within their power, their preparation, their mindset, and their response. Because let's be honest, most of the control we think we have over the world is nothing but an illusion. We cannot control other people's choices. We cannot control outcomes shaped by countless hidden factors. We can work hard, plan carefully, and execute flawlessly, and still life may take an unexpected turn. This is why the story of water and stone is so important. It reminds us that true strength doesn't come from resisting change, but from adapting to it. Miyamoto Musashi, the great samurai swordsman, once wrote in the Book of Five Rings, "You can only fight the way you practice." At first glance, it sounds simple, but look closer. He is pointing out the truth of control. You can only command your own preparation and actions, never the battlefield itself. If Musashi saw someone trying to control their opponent's every move, he would probably call them a fool. Why? Because strategy is fluid. The battlefield is alive. Fortune is unpredictable. The more you cling to control, the more the world will control you, through frustration, through anxiety, through failure. That's why the samurai embraced the paradox of control. They knew that letting go of illusions was not weakness, but strength. There's another story from the old masters. A samurai's prized katana was once stolen by bandits. His students rushed to console him, expecting him to be furious, demanding revenge. But the master simply said, "Who knows if this is good or bad?" The very next day, a young blacksmith brought him a superior sword as repayment for an old kindness. His students congratulated him, but again he replied, "Who knows if this is good or bad?" Later, his son tried the sword, but cut himself badly. The students worried for him, but the master repeated the same words. Who knows if this is good or bad? When war came to their province, All the young men were called to fight except his son, whose injured hand spared him. Once again, the master's answer was the same. Who knows if this is good or bad? What wisdom! This story shows us how blind our judgments often are. What we call misfortune today may save us tomorrow. What we cling to as good fortune may one day turn bitter. Who are we to say? The paradox of control lives here too. We think we know, we think we can control, but the truth reveals itself only with time. Even in relationships, the lesson holds. Imagine someone terrified of losing their partner. Out of fear, they begin to control every detail, checking their phone, demanding constant reassurance, restricting their freedom. But the more they control, the more the relationship withers, until eventually it breaks apart. And then comes the realization. The attempt to control had created the very outcome they feared. Control often destroys the very thing we love. And yet surrendering control can sometimes bring us the peace we were searching for. So, what is the paradox of control? Simply this: when we try to control the uncontrollable, we surrender our peace to forces outside us. We let them dictate our emotions. If things go our way, we're happy. If they don't, we're miserable. Which means in the end, those things control us. The samurai saw this clearly. Takuan Soho once said, "The mind that is anxious about its future usefulness is not living in the present moment." Isn't that true? The moment we grasp too tightly for control, we lose the very life unfolding right in front of us. So why do we cling to control? Because we're afraid. Afraid of uncertainty, afraid of chaos, afraid of being at the mercy of fate. But in truth, the only way to find peace is not through controlling the storm, but through standing steady inside it. As the samurai saying goes, the pine teaches silence, the rock teaches stillness, but the storm teaches strength. Musashi put it best: today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men. The victory was never over fate, never over others, but always over ourselves. So, the lesson is clear. Let go of the illusion of control. Focus on what you can truly command: your thoughts, your actions, your response. That is where freedom lives. That is where peace is found. Because, in the end, as the samurai understood, I am not what happens to me. I am how I choose to respond to what happens to me.